I'm going to try to get to a couple of videos today. The first one is about Marcus Aurelius and ACIM. I did a whole series. I need to actually put together a playlist of the series I did on great thinkers of the past and present in light of A Course in Miracles. And Marcus Aurelius really was one of these great writers on wisdom, life wisdom. He was a Stoic. He was an emperor, Roman emperor, 2nd century. And I'm using AI these days more and more. It makes it a lot easier, I think. And I prompted AI today about Marcus Aurelius, and I'll just tell you what I wrote. Hey there, I did a whole section of a book on scriptures and writers who touched upon some of the same ideas as what is found in A Course in Miracles. One figure I did not mention is Marcus Aurelius, who has always seemed to me to be one of the great writers on life wisdom. What I would like to do is to bring forth some of his quotations that are pertinent to ACIM and talk about how they are similar to what ACIM teaches. And let me just say that, part of the reason to do that is just to show that great minds think alike, and that people have found their way to these great ideas over the course of human history, and they've sometimes written it down, and we can still read it. And Marcus Aurelius, if you read his book Meditations, you kind of like go, wow, this guy is he really he was tuned in. So also, I would love to talk about why Marcus Aurelius is one of the great Stoic philosophers and writers that has resonance to this day. Thank you for your help with this. Okay, so then AI says, absolutely, this is ChatGPT. That's a rich and fascinating direction to explore. Marcus Aurelius, especially in his Meditations, offers deeply reflective insights that can resonate powerfully with the teachings of A Course in Miracles, even though they come from a very different spiritual and philosophical traditions. Here's how we can approach this. Brief introduction. Why Marcus Aurelius still matters. Marcus Aurelius, he lived between 121 and 180 CE. He was a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. He left us a profound legacy in his Meditations, a series of personal reflections meant only for himself. Right? He wrote this for himself. His writing reveals a deep inner life concerned with virtue, self-discipline, transience, and aligning with a greater rational order. Despite his Stoic leanings being rational and this worldly, many of his reflections feel almost mystical and surprisingly resonant with A Course in Miracles, which also calls us inward to find peace, purpose, and forgiveness. So that's what I noticed too, reading. I didn't read all of Meditations, but what I read of Marcus Aurelius, left me thinking this guy was not just, he wasn't just a Stoic, he was a mystic. He understood, or at least he touched it. Maybe he had a glimpse of some of these deeper truths. And that's why I decided to start this series again with Marcus Aurelius. Key thematic parallels between Marcus Aurelius and ACIM. Here are a few thematic bridges with supporting quotes from Aurelius, each followed by a brief ACIM resonance. Detachment from this is number one, or A, detachment from the external world. Aurelius wrote, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. ACIM parallel, I am not the victim of the world I see. Right? So victimhood and feeling unfairly treated, this gets talked about often enough in the Course. These are all choices, right, that we make. Right? No one really can unfairly treat us unless we see it that way. Right? And if we stop seeing that as even a possibility, the circumstances will eventually cease to arise where we feel unfairly treated. Right? But as long as we hold on to our trauma and hold on to feeling a victim, feeling harmed, we will continue to suffer along those lines. Commentary, both teachings emphasize that the world does not dictate your inner peace. Perception is key. Aurelius speaks from Stoic discipline. ACIM reframes this with the concept that the world is an illusion projected by the ego, yet both agree you can reclaim your mind. So Aurelius is not necessarily coming from this idea that the world is an illusion. That's ACIM metaphysics, but he understood that basic idea. B, the power of the present moment. Aurelius wrote, confine yourself to the present. ACIM says the present is the only time there is. Commentary, the emphasis on staying in the now, essential to both teachings. For Aurelius, as a way of grounding oneself in reason and virtue. For ACIM, as the doorway to the eternal. And obviously, the present moment is one of the biggest themes of ACIM, right? Present, the present is the only time there is. Heaven is here, heaven is now. And Aurelius obviously understood that. Acceptance and inner peace. Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. ACIM parallel, it is not the world you see that is real, but the reality of your mind in choosing to see it. Now, this does not sound like a quote, actually. I'm wondering if ChatGPT might have fudged this quote a little bit, but we could check it out. But in any case, Aurelius definitely, his thought there, that you have power over your mind to change your mind, is seek not to change the world. This is what the Course says. Seek not to change the world, seek only to change your mind about the world. And Aurelius hit the nail on the head there with that one. D, life as a temporary classroom. Aurelius wrote, do not act as if you are going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. So the Course says the world is a classroom and your purpose here is to learn forgiveness. Now, Aurelius was onto something that we still need to remember, right? Which is that our days are numbered. This is, the Bible says that, right? That your days are numbered. You think, many times we think, well, I'm not gonna die. How am I gonna die? That's not even, I mean, as we get older, we start to warm to the idea that we actually, or recognize the folly of thinking that we're not going to die, right? We are going to die. So while we're here, what is the purpose of our being here, right? What is the main thing that that we need to do in order for our life to be fulfilled, or our purpose here to be complete? And the Course says, learn forgiveness, right? Aurelius says, be good. Same basic idea, maybe. Who knows what he meant by saying be good? He was an emperor. I don't know, he probably did a lot of shitty things, as an emperor. Who knows what, we'd have to really look at what his reign was like. And that's something, I could ask ChatGPT here at the end, see what ChatGPT says. But commentary, life is temporary. Both Aurelius and ACIM agree. For Marcus, this urges moral integrity. For ACIM, it urges a release of judgment and grievances. The goal in both cases, inner peace through wise living. Right? So there's that basic underlying understanding. E, universal brotherhood. Aurelius says, what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. It's a great one. ACIM parallel, when I am healed, I am not healed alone. Commentary, the interconnectedness of all beings. A Stoic and Course idea alike both urge us to rise above separation and act from unity. Right? What is good for everyone is good for me. What is good for me is also good for everyone. Not in a selfish way, though, right? But when I, but it's really not, the Course is not really talking as much about what you do as how you see things, right? How you think about things. So when you see your brother as healed and whole, you see yourself that way, and when you see yourself that way, your brother sees himself or herself that way. But this also, definitely applies to everything. That when we act in such a way that we serve the greater good, we also serve ourselves. And when we serve the greater good of ourselves, we help others as well, right? That's not selfish. That is truth, right? That is that really works. 3, why Marcus Aurelius still speaks today. You might close your section by explaining why Aurelius endures. Authenticity. Meditations was never intended for publication, so its raw honesty resonates. Right? That is important. That similar to the course, because Helen never wanted to put her name on the course, right? She didn't want to be the author of the course. Timelessness. Aurelius wrote from the throne of power, yet focused on humility, death, discipline, and compassion, things we all confront. That's also really cool about Aurelius. Wisdom literature like Ecclesiastes, the Bhagavad Gita, or ACIM, Meditations reads like a mirror for the soul. And then AI asked if I wanted some more. Here's some more, more quotations. Aurelius said, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. Similar to Jesus saying, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. ACIM, parallel, everything they do is either an expression of love or a call for love. Commentary, Aurelius reminds us to expect imperfection without anger, a Stoic form of compassion. ACIM invites a shift in perception. What appears as attack is actually a call for healing. Both lead us away from blame and toward peace. Now, let me just say that I think ACIM goes deeper for sure, right? ACIM is a whole thought system. Aurelius, he's definitely hitting upon some very important things. And I believe probably Stoicism is also a thought system. But I'm not sure if it goes as deep as ACIM, but maybe that's neither here nor there. On living according to a higher self, Aurelius, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. ACIM, parallel, as a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. I already mentioned that. Our inner world creates our outer experience. Marcus ties this to virtue and reason. ACIM expands it to metaphysical perception. Both encourage inner transformation as the path to peace. All right, bud. You're okay, bud. Here, bud. Here. Give me 1 second. Here you go, bro. Hi, Mommy. How's it going?
I'm tired.
I'm just doing a video, okay? I'm just finishing a video.
I'm dancing. I was dancing, but I'm tired. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm just going to finish the video.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll try to put this in the description so you can read it on your own. On not taking offense, Aurelius says, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth by which no one was ever truly harmed. Here you go, bud. I did it. So if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth by which no one was ever truly harmed. That's a great one, right? Who does that? How many emperors do you know do that? Think about Donald Trump and the current Trump administration. Would Trump ever admit that he's wrong about anything? It's not likely, right? ACIM, parallel. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. Commentary. Marcus welcomes correction without ego defensiveness. ACIM goes even further, teaching that defensiveness is of the ego and blocks healing. Both encourage spiritual humility. By the way, I'm going to do another video, if I can, today about Epstein and Trump in light of ACIM. So stay tuned for that if you want to do a deep dive on that. On death and the illusion of permanence, Aurelius says, soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you. ACIM parallel, this world is not your home because it is not real. Right? Do you ever think about that? If you're here, you probably have, right? Many times. But impermanence, right? We are, soon we will be gone. We will probably be not really remembered, or not remembered as we would like to be remembered. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. And even if we are, that doesn't really matter, So we want to start maybe thinking about what is real and what we can, and how we can dwell in what is permanent versus what is impermanent. On acceptance of what is, Aurelius says, receive without pride, let go without attachment. ACIM parallel, to have, give all to all. Commentary, true peace comes from non-attachment and non-possession. Aurelius finds this through Stoic balance. ACIM teaches it is a spiritual law. ACIM teaches it as a spiritual law. You keep only what you give. There's more to it than that, but the fact that Aurelius is getting at this idea of non-attachment is good on him, right? On the unity of all things, Aurelius, everything harmonizes with me, which is harmonious to you, O universe. Nothing for me is too early or too late if it is in due time for you. It's a great one. ACIM parallel, all things are lessons God would have me learn. Meaning that everything is unfolding just as it should, and it is for me to see it that way, right? To accept that life, there is a divine unfolding, there is a plan at work, the plan of salvation is at work, everything that is happening to me is happening for me, and instead of hating on life or blaming God or blaming my fortune or my circumstances or my luck, I can now accept that there's a lesson in everything for me to learn if I only have eyes to see. So the commentary, Aurelius surrenders to the wisdom of the universe. ACIM asks us to trust that everything is part of the curriculum of love. Both teach surrender to a larger order. On the power of the mind, this is the last one. Aurelius says the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. ACIM parallel, I can choose peace instead of this. Commentary, happiness isn't external. Marcus and ACIM both urge a vigilant mind, not to control events, but to choose perception and peace over reaction and fear. That's great. So Marcus Aurelius, simply put, wrote one of the great spiritual documents of all time, up there with A Course in Miracles, or A Course in Miracles is up there with it. I mean, course students will say, course beats anything any day, right? The Course is the greatest spiritual document ever. But let's keep in mind that let's just give props to Marcus Aurelius for what he did, right? And that he wrote this for himself, shows that he had humility, shows that he understood quite a lot about life. Let me just ask, was Marcus a good and just ruler, or was he not always such a good guy? I'm just putting it that way. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Okay, great question. The answer is nuanced. He was, by the standards of his time, a remarkably principled ruler, but not without contradictions and blind spots. It says he He was a philosopher king, duty above pleasure, compassionate laws, and personal integrity. He falls short. This is where he falls short. He persecuted Christians. He spent much of his reign on military campaigns, especially along the Danube frontier. These wars were defensive in purpose but brutal. He wrote his meditations on the battlefield, which is interesting, which makes his serenity impressive, but his campaigns also involve bloodshed and conquest. His biggest historical black mark is appointing Commodus as his heir, a disastrous decision. Commodus was a vain, violent, self-indulgent emperor who undid many of his father's efforts. If Marcus had followed Stoic logic, he may have chosen a more capable successor, but he went with bloodline over merit. DEI. No, I'm kidding. Reconciling the Stoic and the Emperor, the tension between his spiritual depth and his imperial role mirrors something ACIM addresses directly, the challenge of living spiritual truth in a world built by the ego. Marcus sought to be virtuous in an egoic system. ACIM asks us to transcend the system entirely. So while Marcus is not perfect by modern ethical standards, he remains a shining example of a ruler who tried earnestly and consistently to live according to wisdom, humility, and inner peace. He fell short at times, but he did so with awareness, and his meditations are filled with a quiet sorrow for the limits of life and leadership. It's beautiful. I'm impressed by what ChatGPT put together, as usual. And I think this time it had most of the quotes right. Unless I'm mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think definitely the ACIM quotes were mainly right. And I hope this is helpful to you. I would love to hear your thoughts. Anyone out there, and a Marcus Aurelius person, chime in. Yeah, would love to hear anything you want to share. So, all right, see ya.